Welcome to the Nonprofit Report, your update on nonprofit organizations, issues, and leaders. I'm your host, Mark Oppenheim, and today I'm so delighted to be introducing Wayne Ho, President and CEO of the Chinese American Planning Council, founded in 1965 and America's largest Asian American social services organization. Wayne, welcome. Thank you so much for sharing the work of the Chinese American Planning Council.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me here, Mark. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
So 1965, and we're at 2026. Talk about the founders and the sensibility that led to this organization's being established. And oh my word, right? We're talking about 60 years. We're talking about 70 years of service.
Our founders in New York City grew up in Chinatown. They worked in Chinatown. They either were union leaders or worked in garment factories or were teachers in Chinatown. And one of our founders, Virginia Key, who's a teacher, she's still on our board. She's in her 90s and she's as active as ever, not just with CPC, but in the community. But they were really inspired by the civil rights movement, and they knew they had to deal with gang issues in Chinatown, as well as with immigration reform in 1965. They knew there was going to be an influx of Chinese immigrants into New York City, and that they would need support and resources from people who spoke their language and understood their culture. And that's how they started the Chinese American Planning Council. And our first two programs were an after-school program, again, to make sure kids were safe due to all the gang violence in Chinatown at that time, and to support our seniors, because we knew that older adults needed to be healthy and engaged and fed. And now, 61 years later, we've grown to become the largest Asian American social services provider in the entire country. We serve over 70,000 New Yorkers across 280,000 service touch points every year. But our mission has always remained the same, that we want to promote the social and economic empowerment of Chinese American, immigrant, and low-income New Yorkers.
One of the things that I think is so fascinating is this evolution of communities that come to this country initially marginalized and finding a place where they can contribute to great cities like New York. And then the next generations are now embedded, and there are new waves of immigrants coming in with different sensibilities, coming in at different time. There are different languages, particularly a huge nation like China. There are so many different sensibilities that come in, and you're dealing with successive community needs. And those needs change. How do you keep? And you had mentioned that one of your founders is still on the board. So, looking at her perspective, how does somebody who founded the organization view the changing needs of the community over these last 60 years?
Yeah, we just had a board meeting a couple of days ago, and this issue of responding to community needs and expanding our programs to do so came up. And it is because, as you said, that the Chinese American community, the Asian American community, other immigrant New Yorkers, there's those who have been here for 3-4 generations, and they have kids or grandkids that now know where to go if you want to get home care, if you want to get college access support, if you want help signing up for public benefits like SNAP and Medicaid. And there's those that just came off the plane and they don't know what a not-for-profit organization is. They've never heard of a senior center. They don't know what affordable housing is. And it's really through word of mouth that people hear about CPC and the work that we do. And it is interesting about the changing demographics of the Chinese community, because many who came in the 1960s spoke Cantonese, and they might have been from the mainland or from Hong Kong. And you fast forward to the 80s and 90s, because of immigration reform, you have more that are coming who speak Mandarin or Taiwanese, and They might be a more in the professional class, but they still need support for their family members. And then we fast forward to now is we know there's a huge group that comes that speak Fujianese, and they're always looking for services. So even an organization like CPC, where 60 years ago we were very strong in Cantonese, then 40 years ago we expand to do more Mandarin services. Now we have to have staff who speak Fujianese. But as you know, we don't serve just the Chinese population. We serve anyone who needs a better job or wants to learn English or wants to become a citizen. So we have staff who speak Spanish and Haitian Creole and Russian. We serve folks who come from or who speak 26 different languages and dialects.
Talk a little bit about how you manage the tensions and the needs. There's a whole communication, a transgenerational communication that you have to manage in order to retain cohesion. How do you actually ensure that your staff, are you hiring people? You already mentioned the different languages, but are you hiring people at different ages, different places? Are you intentionally building an organization from the board on out, your volunteers and so on, that you're thinking about that whole communication piece to ensure cohesion of the organization?
Yeah, we have always prided ourselves on not just serving an individual, but that we serve the whole family across generations. And all our work has always been intergenerational. And that's why it's very important for us to be reflective of the community. And as we hire, we think about our community members, not just in terms of the clients served, but also in terms of the workers hired. And that's why we have folks who have been part of CPC for decades, and their first daycare that they went to when they were 2 years old was a CPC daycare. And fast forward to 40 years later, this one individual named Mary is now the director of all 6 of our daycare programs, and she's been with CPC for over 20 years. We have an individual named Steve who got his first summer job in high school through CPC, and now he's a director of my Brooklyn Community Services. But in order to build cohesion, we've always thought about working across generations, working across dialects and language, and we hire with always an eye towards being inclusive and being equitable and being reflective of the community.
This is fabulous. You know, the thing that I think that you're pointing out is this idea of diversity, inclusion, the whole idea of strategy that connects people to the communities that are being served. It's usually talked about as something that crosses racial boundaries, right? You're saying that we're talking about culture. We're talking about age, we're talking about background, we're talking about gender, we're talking about all these different aspects. Race is just one aspect. Inclusion and being able to serve communities, whether you're an arts organization or whether you're a service organization or an environmental organization, it is about so much more than that. It could be about language.
Yeah. And just one example about being inclusive is that our base is the Chinese American community, which we've already discussed is very diverse, not just in terms of immigration experience and dialect, but also whether they came from certain provinces or whether they came from Taiwan or Hong Kong, or whether they're a second migration through South America. But also the neighborhoods are different. We serve Sunset Park, Brooklyn, as well as Homecrest, Brooklyn. We serve Elmhurst, Queens, and Flushing, Queens. We serve Chinatown, and the east side and the west side of Chinatown is very different.
Different economies, different businesses, different families, different needs.
Yeah, it's very different needs and very different economies, very different schools, very different levels of affordability. But we at CPC always want to serve the whole individual and the whole family. And just as one example is, we had someone who was in our high school program named April. And when she became eligible for summer youth employment, she applied for SYEP through CPC. And when she was looking through what her possible job sites could be, she chose Hongning Housing. And the Hongning Housing is CPC Senior Affordable Housing in the Lower East Side. And she chose Hongning because her grandma 10 years ago moved into Hongning. And when she was in elementary school, she used to drop by with her parents to bring food to her grandma and spend time with her grandma and watch Chinese opera. And she knew that being intergenerational and intersecting with older adults was just an important thing for her. So she organized all these wellness activities, from Tai Chi to arts activities to bringing in music and other volunteers who are high schoolers or college students to engage with all 200 individuals who live in Hongning housing.
It's interesting. We work with people in different environments, different neighborhoods, across cultures, and so on. If you look at culturally appropriate services and you talk about elder care and integrating elders into the community, or children, or people who are disabled, or all these different needs. If I'm working in a rural community and I'm talking about the isolation of elder women, for example, where farming communities are now breaking up and people are feeling isolated, sometimes by distance, sometimes by cultural changes in those communities, you have the same kind of issues. They might have, the details might be different, but elder women in Chinese communities are facing some real challenges. It's the same thing for kids. It doesn't matter if you're Black or white or Christian or Muslim or Jewish. You've got these same issues that require the services of an organization like yours. So let's talk a little bit about your scale, how many staff you have, the kind of budgets you're driving, and how your funding actually works. How do you self-sustain?
Yeah, so CPC, we're actually a family of 10 not-for-profit organizations. So our 61-year-old organization is the Human Services Organization that's also a parent corporation to 9 other entities, which include 2 home care agencies, and the rest are affordable housing entities. So as a family of organizations, our operating budget is around $185 million per year. We have about 6,000 employees. 700 are human services employees, about 30 are affordable housing employees, and the balance, the 5,000 plus, are home care workers. And like many multi-social service agencies in New York City, we are mostly government funded. So over 80 some percent city, state, and federal contracts for us to serve children and older adults and everyone in between. But in order for us to maintain being an employer of choice and to have good benefits and to promote within our organization, as well as, more importantly, to be responsive to different community needs. Like right now, we know food insecurity is a big issue. We raise private funding with partnerships through corporations and foundations and generous individuals for us to launch different programs too. So we're a large organization with over 60 programs at 40 locations throughout Brooklyn, Queens, and Manhattan. Just last year, we opened up an office on the North Shore of Staten Island because there's a growing Chinese immigrant population there. But we do our best to serve over 70,000 New Yorkers per year to make sure they not only survive, but they thrive.
70,000 New Yorkers a year is a prodigious number. And is your incorporated, or do you have multiple incorporated entities, or is it one incorporated entity with multiple divisions?
No, we have multiple incorporated entities. So we're 10 separate entities that are all affiliated either through our boards or through a subsidiary structure.
And then as you describe the nature of your programs, that was something that was really fascinating, and it was not something I was able to glean through our own independent research. What you're describing are different competencies. Let's just take the financial competencies of dealing with a services organization as opposed to a property owning and administering organization. How do you ensure that your various people are suited to the various needs of those organizations without allowing overhead to suddenly explode into taking up more and more of your budget?
Yeah, we always center the community. And whether you're my chief program officer, my COO, my general counsel, You have to center the community. And that's why we do our best to make sure that all the resources that we raise goes towards programming and services, go towards compensating our frontline staff, from our daycare teachers to our home care workers to our case managers, that they're the ones that the resources are going towards. So, from our hiring to staff orientation to our annual performance reviews to our monthly all staff meetings, everything is always gearing towards what can we do to make you do your job better? What are needs that you're seeing in the communities or the families that you're serving? And what can we do as management to support you? And that's something I always tell people, which is that I'm not here as a CEO for staff to support me. I'm here as a CEO to support our staff, who are ultimately the ones who are going to make a difference in the lives of our community members.
Well, you're running an over $100 million annual revenue business, right? I mean, that's what you're doing.
Yep.
How does your governance function? Do you have a central governance body and then advisors or committees that are mapped to your various other entities?
Each of the entity does have its own board of directors. In terms of unique board of directors, it's board members. We have 24 board members who are spread out across the entities. And of course, there's crossover board members. But they are our board of directors, and they're everyone from longtime leaders in the Chinese American community to those who are leaders in the healthcare, legal, financial services fields. Everybody has some sort of tie to the organization, whether they were a student of our founder, Virginia Key, and have been on the CPC board for 30 years, or our current board chair, Chester P. Lee. He's a managing director at a law firm, but his first job in high school was being a security guard at a CPC after school program. And he never forgot what CPC gave to him and his family when he was growing up in the Chinatown neighborhood. And our board is diverse. It's not just Chinese Americans. We have people from other Asian ethnic groups and other racial groups, but all of them have some sort of tie either to the Chinese American community or they have a tie to a program at CPC. But they hold us accountable. They do what a board does in making sure that we are fulfilling our governance, for fiduciary and strategic roles to serve and center the community.
How do you shape strategy? Because I would imagine with an organization of this scale, like any really complicated business, you have strategies that unfold at the program level, where it's defined by the kind of services that particular entity or sub-entity provides. But then you have overarching strategies that bind this organization together. How does that actually work? It's got to be a multi-year and ongoing process. It's got to involve a lot of communication and discussion, probably a little bit of lobbying, a little bit of politicking. I know that you're unfamiliar with that, but you are a nonprofit leader, so there might be some of that. How do you manage that process so that it's rational and doesn't spin out of control and has its intended impact while you're also serving people on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, that's a great question, because we have a lot of people and we want to make sure we're all moving in the same direction and making a difference in the lives of New Yorkers.
And everybody needs to have ownership, right?
Yes. Yes. And that's where a lot of our ingenuity and innovation and strategic work, it's really a top-down and bottom-up process. But what my leadership team and I are really good at is that we always have a 5-year strategic plan. And the plan, of course, is always informed by not just board members and staff members. It's been informed by our funders, by our community partners, by legislators. But I think the important thing is we define our top 3 to 4 goals over the 5 years. We educate everyone on what those goals are, and we make sure that everything leads towards it. So when we're creating our annual budget, or when we are laying out our bi-monthly board meetings and what topics we're going to talk about, to our monthly meetings with our program supervisors across our 60 programs, that we always make sure that everything we do is leading up to what our strategic goals are for the next 5 years. But we also know we need to pivot. None of us could have expected the cuts we see to Medicaid or SNAP. But we know that we're always there to meet the community's needs, and we will do our best.
A lot of people don't realize that 40% of Asian American households receive some sort of assistance, and there have been massive changes in funding that have got to affect your community. How do you respond?
Yeah, in CPC, we realize that our work is not just providing resources and services to the community, but we also have to advocate for our community. And one example is SNAP, that food stamps, that we knew that food insecurity was going to grow based on our own analysis of the 70,000 New Yorkers we serve. 10,000 were going to be affected by the changes to SNAP, and 2,000 were going to lose SNAP altogether. And this means either food on their table or for the grandparents or for the children. So we do what we do best at CPC, which is we expand services immediately to meet the need. So we reinvigorated our partnerships with partners like City Harvest, Heart of Dinner, Meals on Wheels, in order to reestablish our food pantries in Brooklyn, Queens, and Manhattan that had been shut down a couple of years ago after the pandemic. But we started doing food distribution again, and we have hundreds of community members coming every week to those food pantries to get food. We also have a very robust policy and advocacy department. So we released a report talking about the issues that the SNAP changes will cause, not just amongst the CPC community, but also the larger New York City community. And we also led policy and advocacy efforts to do more investments in food security, stopping things like SNAP skimming, as well as making sure that state legislators and the city council would understand what this meant. And we're glad to see that there's more investments in the state budget and the city budget to promote food security during this time.
The thing that I really like about what you're describing is that you are basically part of the ecosystem of support and transformation of the city. And by making common cause, using your expertise in terms of your connections with the community, the credibility that you have, the cultural knowledge that you have, the services, the people, and so on and so forth, you're combining with counties, with municipal people, with city partners, with other nonprofits, right? Food banks and so on, and you're collaborating. What I think is so unbelievably interesting is how so much of this is not about money changing hands or transaction. It's about collaborating for beneficial impact only, right? People figure out the money in order to deliver the beneficial impact. They're not trying to figure out the money in order to pocket more for themselves. And I think that's just amazing. It's the way the country should work, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's why we all work at a not-for-profit organization. It's not about us trying to make a profit. It's about us raising the resources we need to have good jobs for our staff, and then having the resources to provide services to our community members. And we serve the entire family. We know, for example, that there are recently there was someone named Sabrina who had to deal with cancer and needed resources to support her kids, and came to CPC because she needed help navigating the public healthcare system in New York City. And we helped her sign up for Medicaid as well as other public benefits. And at the same time, we made sure that her kids had the resources they need. They were attending public schools where CPC does provide after school programs, but we also made sure they had school supplies and backpacks and study materials. But we also made sure that we connected them to mentors to support them. And we're glad that she's getting her treatment and she's getting better. And through our work, we've also helped her get a better job through our career center. And her kids are doing well right now, too. But that's what we do at CPC. It's not just about one individual. It's about making sure the entire family is strong. And that means then the neighborhood and the community are also strong.
And who among us doesn't need help? My family has gone through times where we absolutely have relied on the good graces of others, support. We go through mental health issues, physical health issues. We go through issues where we need some sort of guidance or mentoring. This is just such a wonderful organization. Wayne, I'd like you to thank everyone that works with you and we thank you for your work in the community. Please thank your staff, your donors, your board members who serve tirelessly, and all the partners that you have in bringing this value to the community. Wayne Ho, President and CEO of the Chinese American Planning Council, for 60 years in service, 61 years in service and counting. We're looking forward to that 70th year of service. And thank you so much for your insights and sharing the work that you do with us.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me here, Mark. I really appreciate our conversation.